Not good. Merrin and Green gasped at the same time. From the screen, Zhao also saw what happened. With a thought, he managed to pull Shift out of danger and placed him in a predetermined spot next to Green. But his reaction wasn't fast enough since Shift still sustained some injuries. Suddenly, magic warning lights shot out of the tent and into the sky, lighting up the whole camp. Everyone in the camp started waking up. The first was the three advanced warriors, who immediately rushed out of their tent. Their faces had always been as still as thousand-year-old ice, but from what they saw outside, their faces started to change color. The situation of the entire camp had completely changed. Everywhere you looked there were huge undead, numbering more than 1,000. They were running around the camp like mad buffalo. Many of the ordinary warriors, before they were able to leave their tents, were trampled to death by the undead. And even those who were able to get out in time had to start fighting the undead, but of course, they weren't even worthy opponents. In a single moment, out of 300 warriors, less than 100 of them were still alive. The three advanced warriors were very surprised. These undead creatures were highly toxic. An ordinary warrior would become poisoned with just a single touch from the undead. They had to use all of their martial arts skill to try to suppress the spread of the toxins. If they couldn't suppress, their bodies would instantly rot with a green color, and they would fall to the ground, dead. With their pathetic efforts to fight back, more than 200 warriors had already been killed, some from this lethal toxin. What also alarmed the three advanced warriors was that even though they had set up a perimeter of assassins around the canyon, they had received no warning of these undead from them. The assassins had also failed to return to aid them. This gave them an ominous feeling. While they were standing there, stunned from what they saw, two blue water dragons rushed straight at them. The three advanced warriors immediately recovered, then they took out their swords. Their swords weren't like the common ones that could be found on the continent. They were similar to rapiers, thin and meant for stabbing. Generally, the nobility would wear these on their waists for decoration. But these swords that the advanced warriors carried were significantly different. The blade was black, but it also revealed hints of red. This was a weapon that looked ready to kill. Two of the three advanced warriors stabbed their swords and eventually took down the water dragons, then they all rushed at Merrin. Meanwhile, Meg, Blockhead, and Rockhead were fighting some of the ordinary warriors. They didn't dare participate in the battles against the high-level experts, because if they did, they wouldn't even know how they died. The three had no real war experience, but their strength was more than enough to deal with these panicking ordinary warriors. Just then, a bang came from the Midge's tent. The tent split apart and two giant stone figures rose up. The stone giants stood as firm as a mountain. They were very tall, about 7 to 8 meters, with a round boulder forming their heads, though it had indistinct human facial features. Obviously, these two stone giants were summoned by the Jishiling twins. They were what made the twins famous. Garan was standing between the Jishiling twins. He had his magic staff in one hand and the iron book in the other. With cold eyes, he stared at the undead running around. "Humph, shameless villain. Is that how you plan to attack?" Garan opened up the iron book, and suddenly a massive amount of white light shot into the sky. The light slowly formed into white spheres, which then fell to the ground, like meteors, throughout the whole canyon. Merrin couldn't help but feel surprised when she saw this scene. Damn, it's coming lights. I can't believe that's one of the spells sealed in the Iron Book. Coming lights was a 6th level light spell. It wasn't an attack spell, but an area of effect healing spell. It brought no harm to humans or spirit beast. However, it was lethal to the undead. It might not be powerful enough to kill high-level undead, but it can cause a lot of damage. This spell that Garin released could arguably be the most useful in this situation. Because of its large area of effect, it could take down this army of undead, and even injure Drunk and the other undead black mages. Seeing what was happening outside the space, Zhao was under pressure, trying to think of a way to protect his undead from this magical attack. He was about to pull the undead back into the space, when suddenly the voice came: discovery of radioactive rays. Absorbing light. Analyzing. Light rays are similar to radiation therapy. Light rays causes damage to robotic objects. Improving robotic objects. After the voice faded away, all the undead in the canyon started flashing green light. The bones of the undead soon became crystal clear. Now when the light spell hit them, it seemed to have no effect. Zhao stared blankly at this. He didn't understand how this could have happened. Supposedly the space had improved the undead so that they wouldn't be affected by the light, but he didn't even crack open a hole to bring the undead into the space for improvement. So how did the space do it? Zhao was puzzled until he saw Shift, who was fighting alongside Green. Shift was injured, but he could still move around and fight. With a look of amazement on his face, Zhao finally understood how the space improved the undead. It was because Shift was holding the ghost staff. That staff was connected to the space, so naturally when it sensed the light spell, it allowed the space to improve the undead. Figuring this out, Zhao couldn't help but laugh. He hadn't bothered to take the ghost staff back from Shift earlier because the staff was bound to Zhao. There was no way for other people to use it. Even Shift could do nothing but carry it around. If someone actually snatched it, Zhao could recover it with a single thought. That was why he wasn't in a hurry to take back the staff, which resulted in this unexpected windfall. Everyone in the camp had also noticed that the light didn't affect the undead. Originally, the undead were moving around slowly because the light was burning them like sulfuric acid, but after they flashed with a green light, they seemed to have become more vigorous. Neither the warriors or Garin could understand how this could happen, but Green and Marin understood. It was because of the space. When Garin saw that the undead wasn't reacting to the light, his face became pale. He immediately used the Iron Book again, and soon light magic surrounded his body, forming a glowing white angel. The angel wore white robes, and it had a wingspan 50 meters long. In its hands was a great white shield with a mighty lion face pattern on it. This was the 6th level light spell angel's protection. Of course, it wasn't a real angel. It was just a spell that projected the light elements to create this image. This spell was used for defense. After he released Angel's protection, Garin put away the book and whispered a spell that formed a layer of magic around the Jishi-Ling twins, who were sending their stone giants to fight the undead. Not only were the stone giants strong, they could also throw parts of themselves as projectiles. Afterwards, they could just absorb the earth element from the ground to compose new parts for their body. They were very difficult to deal with.